Hello and welcome, Diane. I'm super excited to have you here.
Well, hey, Anka, I'm happy to be here from Whidbey Island in the great state of Washington, where it is little after 7 o'clock in the morning of a summer day.
Wow, like you're much more awake at 7 in the morning than I would be, that's for sure.
Washington State is known for its coffee, and I buy it.
It's so funny because like the cultural difference is fascinating, right? I lived in Sydney and I go to the pool at 6:30 in the morning and I'm thinking I'm breaking all the records and people coming towards me already out and already finished.
Yeah,
And it's yeah. So
yeah.
what's your business? Who do you help and how?
Well, I will backdoor into that by saying, because this all informs the business. I am an adventuring, mountain climbing, backpacking, country trekking, kayaking, book reading, gardening, beekeeping woman who has walked 500 miles across Spain on the Camino de Santiago. And the values that are key to me and my life, which then informs my work, are justice and communication and adventure. So if I take the personal side of me and blend it to the professional side of me, I will say that I'm a nurse attorney turned litigation consultant turned story guide. And for 30 years, which is hard to believe, I've helped professionals all over the country take their story from a message only they could hear to the publishing world, to the courtroom, to hospitals, to boardrooms, to public speaking platforms. And these stories sway juries, they built markets, they spread ideas, and they changed things. And so, taking all of that together today as the principal guide and story consultant at Quartermoon Story Arts, I help women become successful origin story creators, the story of how they got from there to here, so they can connect with and engage and influence their audiences, their clients, their communities to action. And this work that we do helps women clarify their ideas, amplify their voices, because our voice, I don't have to tell you, our voice is our power, and our story is the expression of our power. And I'm also the voice behind Stories from Women Who Walk, which is a long-running global podcast, 4.5 years, still in the top 3% of podcasts worldwide. So in a nutshell, that's me.
I love that. I love that. And I love the blend of like how, okay, this is who I am as a person and this is how that informs my work. And this is like showcasing, it's literally walking your talk in a quite literal way, funny enough. So when people come to you, like who hires a story guide? Like it's not, so if I'm going like, oh, Jesus, my sandals, I need some shoes, right? So it's like, I know this is what I need, and I will go to the shoe shop and get some shoes, right? So who hires a story guide and what is it that they come to you for?
It's a great question. I work with professional women, solopreneurs, women who are at a crossroads and coming back into the career world. And what they would know is story as marketing, story as branding, story as how do I say to someone who I am? Why am I here? What is my work? Who's it for? Why does it matter? And we hear a lot of emphasis on what's your why, but this work has to do with your who, because as I just showed you, my who informs my why. Who I am as a woman with the values of justice and communication and adventure informs the work that I do with women. And so it's interesting because when women can come to me for a consult, they are looking for something that isn't directly related to their story because they haven't made that connection. So they might be needing some help with a keynote. How do I put this keynote together? How do I get over my stage fright willies of speaking in front of an audience? I'm in a corporation and I can't get my ideas across. I can't get people to see me, hear me, get me understood, listen to me. So they come with that initial question or pain point or need. And in the course of that, we begin to work on, well, who are you? What is your story? What is your voice? How did you get from there in your world to here? And along the way of working on that story, they're developing the confidence to say what they mean and mean what they say. So I can say I'm a storyteller, I'm a story marketer, I'm a story brander. Those are the words that people would more likely find on Google or Answer the Public. But I say I'm a story guide because I start from the place that says, you, woman, client, person, you know the story you want to tell. And all you need is someone to listen it out of you. So it puts a great deal of power in that position of the woman to say, I'm creating this, I'm discovering this. And so as a guide, I'm helping show the way, but I'm not a coach in the sense of let me show you how to. I might open doors for them. And so at the end of the day, what do they have? It really depends on the client. At the end of the day, they might have a keynote. At the end of the day, they might have the skills and the tools to be able to say, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is who I am. They have a strong sense of confidence in their voice, in using their voice to say what they mean and mean what they say. So it's a little bit different. It's more healing, I think, than looking for a new pair of sandals. How does that answer your question?
No, it does answer the question. Like I was kind of really contrasting it, because I think somebody kind of needs to look in that direction already. So what I'm curious about is like, from your experience, I think we all understand the power of stories, right? So what makes it hard to tell our own, right? So why do we need somebody to listen it out of us?
That's a brilliant question. A reason in my experience is it's difficult is because women in particular, so that's who I work with, women in particular feel, number one, they don't have a story to tell. And number two, if they do have a story to tell, who's going to listen to them? It's not that important. So there's a big sense of diminishment about the experiences we've had and the accomplishments and the achievements and how we got from there to here. So it was very deliberate for me to open by saying, personally, this is Diane. This is backpacking, gardening, beekeeping, Camino walking Diane, because all of those things go into the story. So it is that sense of, I don't have a story to tell. And if I do, what difference does it make? So, and that really, in many that's cultural. That's really cultural. And part of this work is to say, okay, now that you've got your feet grounded in your story, now that you've got a connection with your voice and the power of your voice, now you can begin to unbalance the status quo by transforming the lives of the clients you serve and transforming the lives of the women in your community and the women in your church and the women in your school, by encouraging them then to say, this is my story, and say what I mean. I mean what I say. It's healing. It is healing in 27 different ways. And the best part about it is at the end of working together, women will say, I didn't know I could do that. And so that's why I say, I help you find the words you didn't know you had, because you have them.
Yeah.
You have them. You just need someone to listen those words out of you so that it becomes your story. And then that story can be used in many different ways. It can be used in your marketing, it can be used in your branding, it can be used as an introduction in public speaking. It can be used if you're interviewing for a position. It can be used for helping you redesign your career, because it goes all the way back to once you know who you are and how you got here, then you can say, oh, now I know where I'm going.
I love that. I love that. Do you find there's also a challenge sort of on the other end of that spectrum where, you know, you say, well, you get carried away rambling, like there's too many stories, there's too much stuff. So where it's a matter of how do I choose what to tell and what not to. And there's something that I've heard a lot in the context of content creation where people like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to share personal stories, but I don't want to give away like private information, you know, where there's that distinction. Do you find that that's an issue also, or is that not a thing?
Yes and yes. So you asked two questions. You've asked, how do I know what story to tell and which stories I don't need to tell because they might dilute the core story? That's question number one. And the second is, if I have something private that's important to share as part of the story, how much of that do I share? So we go back to the beginning. What's your intention? So we have to start there. What is it that you are trying to achieve? And based on that answer and our work together, then we can say, all right, here's the core story of what you're trying to do. So there's a client I had in Australia who was really trying to figure out what her core story was so that she can share with her clients, what is it about, how did I arrive at this interest in curiosity? How did I arrive at that? What informed my personal and professional life along the way? So now we've got some bookends, if you will, and we've got the core story that she's trying to create. That story can be as short or as long as the situation requires. And that core story can have a side story to it. So if you're talking with a potential client, you might be able to say, so for example, I remember a time, or you might be interested in hearing. So we think of it as a spine in a way, and then there's stories that go from that. To answer quickly the question that you had about personal stories, we are encouraged by hearing the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, the rags to riches story. That's what we go to in books, we go to in movies. That's what we want to know. How did the heroine, how did she do that? What were the choices she had to make? What were the consequences of making those choices? What were the challenges? And we are interested in that. So I've talked about being an incest survivor, and it's enough to say that. People know what that is, but I don't have to go into the details of it. So think of that story like the Dance of the Seven Veils. You don't have to take off the veils. So knowing what it is you want to say, how come you're saying it, to whom you're saying it, and how much of what is in that private story reasonably needs to be revealed beyond a phrase. And in order to get to that point, you will have had to do the work on that dark bit, if you will, so that you don't fall apart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I love that. So this is fascinating. It's almost like, Jesus, like we could unpack this, you know, and I think if somebody wants to unpack it with you, where do they go?
That's a great question. So my website is Quartermoon Story Arts. You can get to it by quartermoonstoryarts.net. And there is I know it's long, but there is an opportunity to sign up for a no sales, no obligation, absolutely free consult. And there's a link there to connect with me, and we'll have an opportunity to check in by Zoom and have a chat about what it is that you're looking to accomplish and how we might work together to bring that into a reality.
Love that. Such a beautiful way to land the plane. Thank you so much for coming. And I can't wait to hear more about your story. So thank you.
Looking forward to it, Anka. Thanks very much for this time.